Hello guys, welcome back to this channel and thanks for viewing this video. Today we are going to talk about labels in Java. We are going to see how to create labels and then add them to your frame. In the previous video we talked about frames. I showed you how to create a frame in Java GUI, and now it's time for us to talk about more GUI components and then see how you can add them to your frame. So labels are objects that can represent a string of text. You can also set an image as a label. You can set an icon to your label, or a label can be the combination of both text and image, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. So how do you do to create the label? So let's come to the coding part. So here I'm having the class myFrame, which is inheriting from the properties of the class JFrame, and that class JFrame is responsible for creating the frame, okay, as we saw in the previous video. And I have my main class and I have the main method where I am creating an object that is going to be the frame, because that object is of type myFrame. And as you know, myFrame is inheriting all the properties of the JFrame class. Okay, so this is going to be a frame. So this is how you create frame here. So all our work is going to happen here in the myFrame class, and that's where we're going to be working. So I was talking about how you can create a label. So to create a label, you have to use the JLabel class. So you write JLabel, that label. So this is going to be the name of our label component. And we have to instantiate that label component by saying JLabel, the new JLabel. I need to import the JLabel class. Now I don't have any error. So the label, as I said, can represent some text. Now, if you want to set the text of your label, there are two ways to do that. The first way is to add some text inside the brackets here directly when instantiating your label. So we can say this is a label, something like that. So this is going to instantiate your label. I'm going to show you how to set text another way later on in this video. So now if you run your program, we are not going to be able to see the label on our frame because we have not added that label on the frame yet. So we need to add the label on the frame. So how do you add the label on the frame? You need to know the frame, and then you have to use the method called add. So our frame here is an object of the class myFrame. So I'm going to say this. Since we are in this particular class, I am going to say this, that add, and inside the brackets, I am going to write in the name of my label component that I want to add on the frame. And always don't forget the semicolon. So this line of code is going to add, so I'm going to say add the label to the frame. And it means that, okay, on this frame, I want you to add this particular label. So that's basically what this means. So now when I run, the label is now showing on the frame. Let me remove this green background color. I think that's the line here. I'm simply going to say remove like this. And then when I run, okay, now the background color has been removed and we still have our label on the frame here. All right. So at the same time here, we also have the possibility of defining the alignment of the label on the frame. Let's say, for example, we want our label to show on the right side of the frame. How can we do that? We are going to add a parameter inside here. We say comma, and we will use string constants. So it's a way to do that, that if we want it to show on the right, we say right like this. Okay, so I need to import the string constant, okay, like this. And now when I run, you can see that the label is showing on the right side of the frame. So you can align your label at various positions. Okay, as you can see here, it's saying bottom, center, east, horizontal, leading. So you have various options. All right, I will say center and run. Now the label is showing on the center. All right, so now that was about the alignment. So you can use string constants to align your label on your frame. So about adding your label to your frame, there are various other ways that we can do that. And it also depends on the layout manager on your frame. We are not going to talk about layout managers in this video. We're going to do that in the coming videos. But that's the basic way to add a component to your frame. Okay. So let's say that, okay, we want to remove all this. I'm going to show you how you can also set some text to your label. So this is the second method that you can use, second way to do that. I would say the name of the label, that the name of the class of the method. That method is called set text. And inside the brackets here, I'm going to say this is my label. So when I run, now you can see we will still have the label showing on the frame. All right. You can also set an image as a label, or you can add an icon to your label. Okay, so that's it. We already declared an icon in here. So image icon logo, new image icon, and then the path to the image. I have a folder called images here, and then in that folder I have an image that I called my_logo.png, and I'm gonna use that very same image. Okay, so now if you want to set an icon to your label, all you have to write is label.set icon, and then inside you need to write the name of your icon. So the name of the icon is logo. So I will simply write logo like this. And then when I run the program, you will see that I will not only get text, but I also have an image, which is referring to the logo that we just set in our code. So we can also play around the position of the text, the logo of the icon here, by using a certain method called set horizontal text position. Okay, because as you can see on the frame, the label is placed on the right, and then the image is placed on the left. But we can actually change that. So I'm going to use this particular method called set horizontal text position by saying label. So that's the name of my label, that set horizontal text position. And I will say JLabel that left and then comma. So this is going to make sure that the text will be showing on the left side, and then the icon will show on the right side. Now let me come and run. So you can see now that the position has switched. Okay, the text is now showing on the left and the image is showing on the right. I can definitely change that here. If I say, for example, center, you will see that the text position will be at the center. It's going to put itself on top of the image. As you can see, the text is on top of the icon of the image like that. So apart from set horizontal text position, we can also set vertical text position. Let me first say left here. So I will say label that set vertical text position like this, and that will still be JLabel that. So here we have various options. We have the string constants like bottom, like center. If we say bottom, for example, and then run, now you can see that the label is showing at the bottom. Okay, so you can play around that. As I was showing you, you can have various options here. So we have bottom, we have center, we have east, horizontal, and all of these various positions. So it's going to work on the positioning of the text according to the image. If you want to place it on the left side, if you want to place it at the center, and all of that you can determine by using this particular method. Okay, so we can also use the method called vertical align. Let me remove this first. So the set vertical align is going to be useful if you want to vertically align both your text and image within your label. So I'm going to say label that set vertical align, and then inside you will say JLabel that center. When you run, now we can see that it's centered. Say we want it to be bottom. So now when you say that it's bottom, the vertical align, now it's showing at the bottom of the frame. So you have to really pay attention, because with certain alignments it's not going to work because it's a vertical alignment. So if you write left, for example, you're going to get an error if you write right or something else. But if you say bottom and center, now it's going to work because it's vertical. It's from the bottom to the top. So apart from the set vertical alignment, we can also use a method called set horizontal alignment. So that will be label that set horizontal alignment, and that will be JLabel that left. So it's going to be left here. What if I say right? Okay, now it's showing on the right side of your screen. If you say center, it's now going to show at the center of your frame. All right. So that was it concerning the vertical alignment on your label. So we can also talk about another particular method called the set icon text gap, which is used if you want to set a gap between the image and the text. So this is how you use that particular method. You say label, that's the name of the label, set icon text gap. And let me say that we want a gap of 100 pixels. Save that. When you come and run, now you can see that there is a gap between your icon and then the text. You can also put a negative number here. So I will say minus 50. All right, so now you can see that the icon and the text are overlapping because it's a negative number. So let me simply say that the gap is going to be 25 pixels like this. I think that will be okay. It's 25 pixels. So what if you want to change the color of your text, the font color of your text? How can you do that? We are going to use the method called set foreground. So you say label that set foreground, and now you can write in the color. Let me say that I want a red color. If you write, now you can see that the text color has changed. It's not red. Black before, but now it's red. If we say blue, it's going to change to blue. It's now blue. So we can actually use some RGB colors or hexadecimal colors. And to do that, I showed you in the other video. You simply say new color, and inside the brackets here, you will write code of the color you want. So we say color like this, and if you run, now that's the color of your text. You can see the difference in the color. You can also use hexadecimal color code by simply saying a new color and then inside the brackets specify your hexadecimal color code. So that's a color. So I will use the red color. I'll say color red. I think that's okay. So now let us also change the font family of our label text. There's a class called set font. So we say label that set font, and in here we will say new font, open the brackets, and inside here we are going to specify the font. I would say Arial, for example. That's going to be the font. So I need to import the font class here. I'm going to say in brackets, I need to specify the style of the font. Let me say bold, and the size of the font, I'll say 28. Okay, so here is the font family. Here we have the style, the font style, and then here we have the font size. All right, so you will see that all this is going to take effect. Now you can see that we have increased the font size of our label text, and we have also changed the font family, the font style. It's now bold. Let me change the font family, for example, and say that it's this particular font here, and then run. Okay, as you can see, the font family has changed and all of that. Let me change to 68. This is going to increase the font size. Okay, say this is my label on the screen. All right. I can also change the font style. Okay, instead of bold, I can say I want italic. If it is italic, now you can see that the text is showing in italic. Okay. So this is how you can work on the font family, the font style, and the font size, and all of that. And also note that you can actually have different fonts. We can have different fonts with different font styles and font sizes. So instead of doing this like we just did here, we can actually declare a font up here and say, because font is actually a class, so we say font one, we say new font, and put the semicolon, and inside we simply copy and paste this. Okay, let me remove. So that's it for the first font. We will copy this, paste it here. We will say font 2, and in here we will remove we will simply say calibrate like this, and the font style will say bold. Then here we will say 70. So we have declared and instantiated our font. So now if we want to use those fonts on a particular label, for example, all we will have to do is to pass the name of the font that we already declared here. So also for us, we are having one label. We can say label that font and then pass in the name of the fonts that we declared. So we will say font 1. So that means that this is actually going to set our font, label font to Consolas, and the font style will be italic, and then the size of the font will be 68. So that's it. So if we say that no, we want font 2 here, and then run, as you can see, it has changed the font style and the font size accordingly. So you can also note that these particular fonts have their equivalent integer numbers. We just show you that. Let us come back to our main method. I'm going to comment this. So I will simply say system not out that print line. And let's say that we want the font style bold. So I need to import the font class. If I run here, you see that this particular font style has an equivalent number of 1. Okay, let me come to my frame here, and if we say that instead of saying font that bold here, I write 1 as a parameter, and then run my program. Let me come to the main program. I put that back here, and then if I run, now you can see that it's still bold. I can also do that here, and if I say 1 and run, that's it. So I will say 1 here. I wrote 2. I have to write 1, and if I run that, now you can see that it's bold. Okay. So instead of writing font that bold, if you have the equivalent integer number of your font style, you can actually put the number, the integer number. It's going to be simple. And as I showed you, if you want to get the actual number, you simply do the system that add the print line, and inside the brackets, you do font that the name of the style, whether it's bold, whether it's plain, you know, center, baseline, something like that. You're going to get the equivalent integer number for that. All right, so let's go back to our label discussions. There's another very useful method that you can use to manipulate the attributes of your label. That method is called the set background. Okay, this is useful if you want to set the background color to your label. So all you have to write is label, that's the name of the label, that set background, and inside the bracket, you can define a color that, let's say that we want the black color like this. So this is going to set the background color of the label to black. When you run, the background color of the label is not showing black. What is wrong with that? So for your background color to actually take effect, you need to add another method called set opaque method. So what we're going to do is to say label that set opaque or false. So if you say true, now when you come here and run, notice that your label is having a black background color. So, and also as you can notice here is that the label is actually taking the whole space of the frame. I'm going to talk more about that just in a couple of minutes. But let us also create a border to delimit our label, to actually see that the label is occupying the whole space of the frame. So how can we do that? We are going to do that by declaring a border. So we will say border and call it label border is equal to border factory that create line border, and we can specify the color. We will say color that red, and we will say the size of the border, we can say 2 pixels. So we need to import the border class. Okay, now we have declared a border element. We can now set that particular element to our label. So we will simply say label that set border, and we called our border element label underscore border. Now if we run, you can notice, as I was saying, that the label is actually occupying the whole space of the frame. As you can see that the border line is actually surrounding the whole space of the frame. So as I was saying, the label is actually taking the whole space of the frame because we have not specified any layout yet, okay? So if we want our label to not occupy the whole space, we have to set the frame layout to null because the frame has a default layout. The label is taking advantage of that and it's taking the whole space. So what can we do to actually set the layout of our frame to null? So what we can do here is we can come up here and say this that set layout. So this is setting the layout of our frame. So we say this that set layout to null. So now when we come and run our program, you can see that there is nothing showing on the screen and there is no layout. Okay, so when we run the program, nothing was showing on the screen. So that means that we have to set the bounds that will determine where our label will be placed on the frame. So now how do we set the bounds? So we are going to use a method called set bounds. So we say label that set bounds, and we are going to determine the coordinates. Okay, that will actually define the positioning of our label. So let me say 25, 25. And after determining the coordinates to determine the positioning, we have to talk about the size of the label. So we say 25 or 500 for the width and then 300 for the height. So as I was saying, the first two parameters here are referring to the position of the label. So it's going to be the X and Y coordinates of the label, so the position of the label on the frame. And the last two parameters here are referring to the size, so actually the width and the height of the label. Okay, so let me come and run. Now we can see where the label is showing. So I can reduce the size of my, which font am I using here? Font 2. I can say that I simply want it to be 28 like this and run. Okay. So now this is how the label is showing. So the space in black surrounded by the red border is actually the label. So it's a box, it's a container that is containing an image and a text. And all of this is actually the label. You will see that if in my bounds here, I reduce the width to 100, for example, and a height to 100 as well. And when I come here and run, that's how my label is going to show on the screen. So let me say 200. I need to increase that a little bit. 400. All right. So that's it. We set the layout of the frame to null, no layout. And then for us to make sure that the label would appear, we had to determine the bounds. That means we had to determine the position of the label and then its width and height, so its dimensions. So there's also another method that we can use to make sure that the frame will resize based on the components it contains. Okay, and that method is called the pack method. Okay, so to use that method, we first of all have to remove this line of code here that we have here. What is it? Set bounds. We will comment it like this. We also have to remove this set layout null. All right, and we're gonna write this that pack. Let me run. This is not working. Why this is not working? Because this particular line of code has to be written, okay, at the end, just here, before the this that set visible. Now, when I run, you can see that the frame is now resizing itself based on the components that we have added on it. So if I add another label, let me say JLabel, label 2, new JLabel, I'll simply put some text and say second label. And come here, I'll say I want to add it to the frame. So I'll say label, I need to put the semicolon. So when you run now, you can see that it's only the second label I added that is showing on the frame. You know why? It's because we didn't set the layout. By default, our components are going to overlap on each other. So that means that because here we said label first, so that's why we're going to have the first label, and then the second label is going to put itself on top of the first label. So let us inverse the positioning. So we will say this that add label 2, and then we say label 1. Now, when I run, you can see that it's only the first label I added that is showing. But in reality, the second label, the label 2, is actually showing behind that label that is showing on the screen here. So in order to fix this problem, we have to use the alignments and layout managers. And we're going to talk about that in the coming videos. But I just wanted to show you this particular error, or not, it's not basically an error, but it's a trick and that you need to be aware of. So I'm going to remove the second label I just added. But to prove the point that this particular method, the pack method, is actually going to allow your frame to resize automatically based on the component that it contains. And let us say, for example, that we want to increase the size of our label. Let us say 78. And when we run, now, as you can see, the frame has resized automatically based on the size of the label. And as you can see here, we had to comment that set size here, so it's not taking that into account. So you can basically use this pack method to resize your frame according to the size of the element that it contains. So guys, that was it concerning the JLabel class and the labels component, how you can add that to your frame. And there are so many things to talk about these labels, but we're going to stop here. In our next video, we are going to continue talking about some other GUI components. And I hope this video was informative, and please don't forget to like, to share, to comment, and to ask your questions, and to subscribe to this channel for more videos like this one. Let's meet in the next one.